Hello everyone. On this video we're going to go over one of the basics of the Uniview NVR recording systems on how to record cameras based off of motion activity. To get started, you do need to get into your menu, and so go ahead and enter in your password, and you do need to have cameras connected to the recorder in order to configure them. So as you can see right here on D1, I have a camera already connected to the system. And we're going to go over to the storage recording menu. So once we get into this menu, you can see that there's a few things we have to go over. The first one is you need to ensure that enable schedule is checked. If this is not checked, nothing's going to record. On motion, you're going to have two settings that need to be considered. The pre-record setting, which is the amount of time in seconds that it'll record before it detects motion, and the post-record setting, which is the amount of time it's going to record after motion has stopped. You can adjust these for whatever value you think works the best in your recording environment. And then you can kind of modify them if you're not getting the recording you want or you're getting far too much recording. So to actually set up the schedule, you just would need to highlight the type that you want to do, in this case motion, and you can drag the cursor across and change everything. So to illustrate this, I'll kind of show what it looks like if you were to record continuously. You could make everything go to normal, which is 24/7 recording. And then if you click motion, you can highlight even sections of the schedule to record on motion, and you could have certain parts of the day record 24/7 or continuously rather, and have like the nights and weekends record on motion. Or if you want everything to record on motion, simply just drag the mouse across all of this area, and then when everything is green, that means motion is going to be happening all day long. Hit apply to save that setting, and then we will go into alarm in order to configure how we're going to have motion start occurring. So once you get into motion, you want to make sure you are modifying the correct channel. In this particular case, we only have one camera, but most of the time you would have a list of cameras here. And then you want to ensure that the checkbox for enable has in fact been checked. This means that motion-based recording will function correctly. Next, we'll go into the trigger actions. The most important one here is that recording for your channel is enabled. So in this case, D1. If this is not enabled, then if motion occurs, it will not trigger the camera to start recording. So it is very important. Presets is used for PTZs, not usually something that's going to be used here. Preview is that when motion occurs, it'll make the camera go full screen on the live view. Then we have alarm outputs, which will trigger physical alarm outputs based off of motion. And finally, snapshot, which means it'll take physical picture snapshots of the video and save them. Additionally, you can have the buzzer that's internal on the NVR go off. You can make up a pop-up window that will show you the actual alert trigger that was enabled, which we'll show you in a second. And you can make it send you an email, but in order to do so, you have to have set up the email server. So after you set these up, you can click OK. That will save your settings and go out of this menu. The next important thing to go over is the motion activity grid. So by default, it is full screen. If we click clear screen, you can see that the grid disappears. This means that nothing on the screen will activate motion. Full screen means anywhere within the screen will trigger motion, and you can kind of see the visual representation of how it sees the motion. And if we have clear, you can see that it is no longer detecting any sort of motion on the screen. And you can actually make custom areas by using the mouse and dragging the corner of the mouse throughout the screen and create a custom grid. And that grid can be set up any way you want. You can even exclude areas within the middle of the grid. And the reason that you would want to modify your grid would be to exclude plants or fans or things that are moving all the time that you do not want to be triggering your motion recording with. And the next thing is sensitivity. So the higher the sensitivity, the more easily motion will be triggered. If we put a very low sensitivity and hit apply, you can see that it is now barely detecting motion on the grid. So the takeaway from this is that you really want to make sure you have your sensitivity set high enough that you're able to capture people and vehicles and other things that might be coming into the view of your camera, that those are tripping the motion so that it starts the motion recording schedule, but not so high that plants and shadows and other things that might come into the scene are constantly triggering motion, resulting in a lot of wasted hard drive space and useless video that you now need to filter through when you're trying to play back and find real events that have occurred within your surveillance. So let's go ahead and exit out of here, and I will show you what it looks like when motion has been triggered. So right now I'll just go into forescreen, and you can see now that my hand's been waved in front of the screen that a small icon has appeared. Looks like two small walking people here next to the blue icon. That means the camera is now recording. And then if we go into alarm and then go back to trigger actions, I'll show you what a few of the other settings do. So let's go to preview, and we're going to enable D1 for preview. After this has been checked, hit apply, and then OK, and then we're going to exit back out. And now while in forescreen, if I wave my hand in front of the camera, you can see that the camera now goes to a single screen showing which camera has detected motion. Now if we go back into alarm and go back to trigger actions, we can go to the pop-up window, which is actually very different. So we hit apply, we hit OK, and now when motion is triggered, the preview is still active, so it still goes full screen, but now we get this pop-up window telling you specifically that motion has been detected one time. This will keep count of how many times it occurs, but this will block your view, so it's not a very popular option. So I just wanted to illustrate the difference between those two, because preview can be pretty helpful, whereas pop-up window tends not to be what people expect it to be. So to check your recordings, you would just go to the menu and go to Playback. And you'll get the playback window here, which in this case is kind of hard to see. So if you adjust the timeline, you can then click into where the motion activity has been triggered, and you can watch your playback. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up, and we would really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out.